Hi, everyone. I'm Margaret Ioannidis, the Assistant Dean for Online LLM Programs at University of Dayton School of Law. I'd like to welcome all of you to the second webinar in our series, Tech Law Insights: Navigating the Digital Frontier. Oops. Today's webinar on smart contracts is co-hosted with our partner in Peru, Universidad de Piura. You will hear perspectives on the topic of smart contracts from two key thought leaders, Professor Pablo Ianello, Director of the Program in Law and Technology at University of Dayton School of Law, and Professor Victor Herrada, Professor from Universidad de Piura. At the end of today's webinar, you'll also have the opportunity to hear from one of our online LLM graduates, Monica Hayes. She will share her experience about how the online program helped her in her career path in the field of data privacy, cyber, and IP. I'd encourage any of you interested in learning more about our online LLM program to please visit our website at go.udayton.edu/online LLM. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of our online LLM students and graduates who are joining us from around the world, as well as to our university partners. We are recording today's presentation and plan to post that recording on our website page for the series. Shortly, I'll enter that link into the chat. We encourage you to visit that webpage as well if you're interested in reviewing supplemental resources and reading materials on this topic. Today's webinar is meant to be interactive, so please feel free to submit questions through the chat during the presentations. We will also have an opportunity for live question and answer at the end of the presentation. At that time, we will stop the recording. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you once again for taking the time to join us this evening and to turn things over to Professor Ianello.
Thank you, Margaret. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on the part of the world you are located right now. It is so great to see so many people from so many different parts of the world in order to discuss and talk and share experience about such a fascinating topic as smart contracts. Okay, now let me introduce very briefly the topic before introducing Professor Herrada, who's going to start his presentation in just a minute. I mean, we are really living a tech revolution, and one of the reasons that revolution is taking place is, without hesitation, blockchain technology. I know that Professor Herrada will explain the concept of blockchain technology in a minute, but let me tell you that it's because of blockchain that we can have this interesting institution of a smart contract that pose a lot of challenging in either law or technology. So the idea of this webinar is to explore some of those challenges that the legal field is facing in this new situation, in this new phenomenon, which is the smart contract. With this being said, I would like to introduce Professor Victor Herrada Bazán from the Universidad de Piura in Peru. Just a brief bio of Professor Herrada Bazán. He is Profesor Ordinario de Derecho Mercantil, Business Law in the Universidad of Piura in Peru. He holds a PhD from in Derecho from Universidad de Valladolid, Spain. He has a master from Universidad de Piura in Peru, and he teaches in corporate law as well as contract law. With that being said, Professor Victor Herrada, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Pablo. Can you hear me well? Okay. Let me share my screen right now. So, good afternoon, everyone. at least from this part of the world. I am very grateful to the University of Dayton Law School for the invitation to participate in this webinar. Special thanks to Professor Pablo Llanello. Although I will do this presentation in English, I just want to say that I am not fluent in it, so I apologize for any possible pronunciation errors that I may make. But anyways, I'm going to try my best to explain everything clearly. I also wanted to let you know that when I talk about legal stuff, I am mostly referring to the laws in Peru, that is my country, and other countries that follow civil law systems. But don't worry, even if you are not familiar with those laws, I will do my best to explain how smart contracts work and how they relate to contracts between businesses and customers. And who knows, maybe we will even learn something interesting by comparing legal systems. So I'm going to talk to you about something called smart contracts. They are basically a kind of electronic contracting that is going to become more and more common in our everyday lives. I want to give you a quick rundown of what they are, what makes them special, and how they are connected to blockchain technology. Then I'm going to talk about what I think are going to be the legal issues that come up when we start using smart contracts for B2C contracts. What is a smart contract? Smart contract is a term used in computing. They are basically computer codes that can do things automatically without needing a person to step in. It is like if you tell the code, if this happens, then do that. And it just follows your instruction. The main paradigm of this mechanism is the following. If X is verified, then Y is executed. But it must be noted that this definition of a smart contract doesn't match up with what is considered a legal contract in places like Peru and other civil law systems. So in order for a smart contract to really be a legal contract, it has to be agreed upon by 2 or more parties and have all the terms included in the smart contract code. That way, it can automatically carry out everything that was agreed upon without anyone having to do it themselves. It is for this reason that it is often said about smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts. For example, let's say you're buying something online and you want to make sure the seller gets paid as soon as the product arrives. With a smart contract, you can set it up so that the payment is automatically sent to the seller's bank account as soon as the computer system at the port confirms that the product has arrived. So do you know how sometimes when you make a deal with someone, you have to involve other people to make sure everyone follows through with their promises? It can be a hassle, right? Well, smart contract system eliminates the need for those extra people and makes sure everyone sticks to the part of the deal. This saves money on those extra people and, of course, reduces the chances of litigation costs. The first person to use the term smart contract was a guy named Nick Szabo, way back in 1994. He's an American cryptographer, and he had this idea for a computerized way to execute the terms of a contract. But it wasn't until 2009 that things really got exciting, because that's when blockchain technology came onto the scene. With blockchain, smart contracts became even better because they were super secure and made it easier for people who don't know each other to make deals. But to understand this, it is necessary to briefly explain what blockchain is and how it has benefited smart contracts. Blockchain is like a big digital database that anyone in the network can check out. This base is made up of blocks that contains information. But the special thing is the information in there is almost impossible to change. Each block in the chain has three main elements. The first element is the data that is stored in that block. The kind of information, the kind of data in there depends on what kind of blockchain it is. For example, Bitcoin stores deeds about transactions, like who sent what to who, and sometimes they can even hold a smart contract, but the most popular blockchain for that is probably Ethereum. The second element of the block is a special code called hash. It's like a digital fingerprint, as you see in the picture, that it's made up of a bunch of letters and numbers. This hash is totally unique to that specific block and what is inside it. And get this, every time a new block is added, a new hash is created just for it. So if anything in the block gets changed, the hash will change too. The third element of the block is the hash of the previous block in the chain. And this is what makes the chain so secure. If someone tried to mess with one of the blocks, the hash for that block will change. That will mean that the hash for the next block in the chain wouldn't match up anymore, which will make all the other blocks after it invalid too. But here's the thing. Computers these days are super speedy and can calculate a ton of hash codes in no time. So in theory, someone could manipulate one block and then recalculate all the hash code for the other blocks to make the whole chain look legit again. Therefore, to avoid this possibility, there is a way to make the blockchain even more secure, and it is called proof of work. And it basically makes it really hard for anyone to mess with the blockchain. It does this by making them do a bunch of extra calculations before they can add new blocks to the chain, a really hard math problem. This slows everything down and makes it way harder for hackers to manipulate the blocks. They will have to solve a bunch of complicated problems before they could even try to have a single block. So basically, it is an effective way to keep our blockchain safe and secure. In addition, there is another feature of the blockchain that guarantees its security. Blockchain is decentralized, meaning there's no one person or group in charge. Instead, it's a big network of people who all have a copy of the blockchain. We call these people nodes. Whenever someone adds a new block to the chain, it gets sent to all the nodes. Each node checks to make sure everything is legit. And if it is, they add the block to their copy of the blockchain. If someone tries to add a fake block, all the nodes will reject it. So basically, it's like a giant group project where everyone is keeping an eye on things to make sure no one cheats. So basically, to mess with the blockchain and change any information, you will have to change every single block in the chain. And to do that, you will have to solve the proof of work, a really hard math problem for every block. Plus, you will need to control at least 50% plus one of the network, which is basically impossible. It will take way too much time and energy. The blockchain can be used to securely store any type of data. In addition to cryptocurrencies and smart contracts, you can actually use it to store all sorts of important stuff, like your medical records or even a digital copy of a signed piece of art. Now, returning to the smart contracts, once I have described in general terms how a blockchain works, it turns out that the smart contract can benefit from it too. Not only does it eliminate any risk of default and lower transaction costs, but it also makes the content of the contract unchangeable and encourage people who don't know each other to make contracts. Indeed, you don't even have to give out your personal information to use the blockchain. Just a special address and some secret codes will do the trick. In this way, while in traditional contracting, it is necessary to know your contract part so that you have the confidence in the future fulfillment of the contract, blockchain technology and the self-execution of smart contracts allows you to make deals with people you don't even know and still feel safe that you will get what you agreed on. However, just as these relevant advantages has been highlighted in smart contracts, it will also be necessary to point out its downsides. Yeah, I know I have been raving about all the benefits, but let me fill you in on at least three drawbacks. First of all, before a smart contract can self-execute, the conditions that everyone agreed upon need to be double-checked to make sure they are clear and objective. This means that the conditions has to be defined super clearly in the code and data of the smart contract. But if there's any confusion or uncertainty about the conditions, things can get messy and cause problems for everyone involved. So it is important to make sure everything is crystal clear before putting it into a smart contract. For example, say you make a deal with someone that depends on a certain plane arriving at a specific time. It's enough to check, right? You can just look it up on the airport's computer system. But let's say the deal is about getting a fancy car, a luxury car. But they didn't say what kind of fancy car. Well, you cannot just assume any car is fancy. You need an expert to check it out and confirm it's the real deal. Until they do that, the contract cannot be executed. In these cases, people have been trying to figure out how to make sure that smart contracts actually do what they are supposed to do. One idea is to use something called an oracle, which checks to see if a certain condition has been met. But sometimes these oracles might not be totally fair, depending on how complicated the contract is. In second place, smart contracts work great when you only need to do one thing to fulfill the contract. But they can get kind of tricky when the contract depends on a bunch of things happening over a long period of time. And if something unexpected happens, like a pandemic or war, the smart contract might not be able to adapt to the new situation. Instead, it will just stick to the original terms, which can be super unfair. As you see, there is no room for flexibility once the contract is set. You cannot make any change or negotiate terms like you could with a traditional contract. In third place, because a smart contract is prepared on the basis of a programming language, you cannot just write up a smart contract in regular legal language. You need a computer professional to help translate it into the right programming language. And if there's a mistake in the translation, things could get messy. Like, who is responsible for any damage caused by the mistake? After all, we lawyers are not usually trained to work with programming language. But hey, more and more lawyers are getting into this stuff, so who knows what the future holds. Made this review for the smart contracts. Here are some legal challenges that come with using them for business to consumer contracts. That basically means when a regular person is buying something from a company. So it is important to make sure everything is done properly to avoid any legal issues. First of all, in B2C contracts, the usefulness of smart contracts lies in reducing the cost of providing the good or provision of the service, as well as ensuring payment of the price by the consumer. Basically, they make sure you get what you paid for and the seller gets their money, all without any headaches. In fact, the Fitzy case is very well known. Fitzy was an app from AXA, the insurance company. And basically, if you bought a flight ticket and the airline messed it up by delaying it for more than 2 hours or completely canceling it, Fitzy automatically refunded you the full amount of your ticket. And get this, it was all done through a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. The smart contract checked the flight status through public databases, and if it was delayed or canceled, you got your money back without having to deal with any claim process. The benefits were evident for both parties. Consumers were assured of their money back within a maximum period of 7 days without needing to make any claim. The airlines, for their part, didn't have to deal with a bunch of angry customers because they already knew who needed a refund. It was a win-win situation. Unfortunately, the company decided to take Fitzy off the market because they weren't making enough money. I think they just didn't do enough advertising or partner up with other travel companies to get the word out. So basically, we're talking about using a really technical way of making contracts for every day between people and businesses. But in order to do that, we need some new rules put in place. At least in Peru, we don't need, I think, we don't need a whole new set of laws just for this kind of contracting, but the current ones might need a few tweaks to work with these new types of contracts. In that sense, when some companies want to put those B2C contracts into a smart contract, it can get tricky because legal language and programming language are different. But here's the thing. Most of the time, those contracts are made up of pre-written general conditions of contracts made by the company. So if anything goes wrong with the smart contracts, the most convenient thing will be to attribute to this company any responsibility. Preventively, I was thinking maybe we should make it a rule that companies have to give us a copy of the contract in natural language. And if there's any difference between that copy and the smart contract code, we could go by the natural language version. It is all about companies being upfront and honest with us about what they are selling. Finally, you know how blockchain technology allows for anonymous transactions. Well, when it comes to businesses selling to customers, we might need to have a way to identify the company so they can be held accountable if anything goes wrong. I mean, if you don't know who you're buying from, you might prefer to stick with regular online shopping where you can see who you are dealing with. Blockchain Ethereum has already figured this out by using pseudonyms instead of complete anonymity. But it will be really helpful if companies using blockchain could share their usernames on their websites and social media so customers know who they are buying from. I have tried to point out in this presentation some of the various legal challenges that the use of smart contracts pose to us in contracts between businesses and consumers. These challenges are pretty important to be aware of, especially since smart contracts are becoming more and more popular. It's up to us to be prepared for this challenge and make sure we are on top of things. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. Thanks for listening and hanging out with me for a bit.
Thank you, Professor Victor. That was amazing. And it really makes me think of so many different things. Technology has really evolved so much and it's impacting all areas of our life. I'd like to present a question. As many of the students in our online LLM program, or many of those who are even considering pursuing an LLM degree, work in the field of international trade or supply chain management, could you share with us any practice-oriented insights regarding how often smart contracts are being used in these types of transactions, either within Latin America or between Latin America and the US, and maybe share a little bit from the practical insights in terms of even what a team looks like that would work on these type of transactions?
Victor, I can take the question if you want, or you want to answer in Spanish and I can translate.
Si te parece, respondo en castellano y traduces. Tengo una respuesta muy corta a eso, porque vamos a ver, en realidad no tengo un dato estadístico sobre la frecuencia con la que se viene usando los smart contracts en este tipo de transacciones. Lo que sí puedo decir es que en el campo del comercio internacional sí me consta, y de hecho lo verifican algunas informes, ya se han aplicado los smart contracts en la compra y venta de mercancías, básicamente porque permiten un rastreo más preciso del movimiento de capitales a la vez, conforme se va moviendo la mercancía, ¿no? Sé que este método lo han aplicado en la cadena de almacenes Walmart, con la empresa de contenedores Maersk. Entonces, hasta allí llega lo que sé respecto de la cuestión estadística. Ahora, ¿cómo podrían aplicarse esto en el comercio internacional? Al menos teóricamente, pues, básicamente, pues imaginemos, tenemos una empresa que vende productos congelados y por el otro lado tenemos a un supermercado que compra estos productos. Están en diferentes países y es la primera vez que van a hacer negocios juntos, por lo que pues acuden a un smart contract. Entonces, el smart contract, ¿qué podría permitir? Bueno, la empresa de transporte podría servir como oráculo y al ser entregada la mercancía, para su transporte lo registran en la blockchain y una vez que llega al destino, se emite automáticamente la orden de pago. Es más, incluso si hay algún mecanismo de tipo de IoT, o sea, de Internet of Things, que puede monitorizar la temperatura a la que se ha llevado la mercancía, pues tranquilamente puede allí comprobarse si es que se ha roto la cadena de frío y si es que el smart contract además tiene que aplicar alguna penalización de manera automática. Eso al menos en la teoría.
Okay, so I will try to provide a translation to that. Can you hear me well? Yes. Okay. So what Professor Herrera just said is basically he has no statistical information to share with us about smart contracts usage in the international trade area, but he's quite aware, and I can confirm that information, that smart contracts are being used in the international trade field, basically in two ways. One is providing more security to the supply chain. Professor Herrera mentioned the example of Walmart with the logistic company Maersk. And yes, they use a system that they have an oracle in each container, and that oracle can monitor the status of the goods inside the container. So when the ship arrives to port, there are electronic documents go through customs, that's another oracle, and that triggers the payment. So basically, those that are familiarized with some international trade vocabulary and have learned something about documentary credit, they know that there is an old process of payment that must go through the banks, and they need to check the authenticity of the documents. Well, we can get rid of all these kind of things if we have blockchain and a smart contract, because the smart contract verified the event and immediately execute the payment. So, Victor, I just did my best to summarize the idea.
Perfect. Perfect, Pablo.
That's fantastic. Thank you. This is magnificent. And Pablo, maybe you can also follow up on maybe the type of teams that would work on these types of transactions. What would it look like if you're putting together a smart contract? What does the team look like?
Sure. And I will echo Victor's presentation, because as he mentioned during his presentation, he was very precise, pointing out that usually, or at least this is the practice nowadays, well, attorneys will need an IT person, not any IT person, but someone that can be trained in the specific program that we are going to use for the smart contract that we are programming. Victor mentioned the Ethereum network, which is the most common one used for programming smart contracts nowadays. And I am aware, because I was involved in one of those, a very common programming system is named Solidity. And basically you need someone that can program in Solidity. And this is not something that you can find so easy, believe it or not. I mean, there is full of programmers, but find someone programming Solidity is not so clear. So basically what you do is you must provide the IT person the precise instructions to the smart contract so that they can translate natural language into programming language.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pablo. So I think now we'll turn things over to you. Professor Pablo Ianello will discuss more related to cryptocurrency. And Pablo, as part of your presentation, maybe also you can share during that or after some of the advantages students would have, or practicing attorneys who are dual licensed or have a familiarity with different legal systems as they navigate smart contracts and cryptocurrency.
sorry, I was muted. So let me, give me a second, I'm going to share the screen. Now you should be able to see my screen. Are you seeing the screen? I think so, hope so. Okay, yeah, so thank you, Margaret. Okay, so Professor Herrada mentioned during his great presentation that there are many uses of smart contracts with its ups and downs, of course. I mean, it's something very new, so we cannot say that all the law has been settled with this respect. But one of the first uses of smart contracts has been cryptocurrency. Okay, and again, I don't want to be very technical on this. This is not a webinar on cryptocurrency, but I think it is important to understand the difference between cryptocurrency and crypto assets. Now, a cryptocurrency, it's some kind of token that is issued in a blockchain so that you can get paid in that blockchain with that cryptocurrency. For example, in the Bitcoin blockchain, the cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. In the Ethereum blockchain, the cryptocurrency are the Ethers, okay, which is the cryptocurrency of the Ethereum blockchain. Then we have a crypto asset. And what a crypto asset is, a crypto asset basically is going to be a token that is built upon a certain blockchain, maybe Ethereum, maybe another one, but most commonly Ethereum, and it then can be traded. It will look more like a kind of security, something like this, okay? Now, if we accept that a crypto asset can be a security, we can see what is called a security token offering, okay? And this is very popular nowadays for many reasons. A security token offering is a fundraising mechanism that involves issuing of digital tokens that represent ownership or investment in a company, project, or asset itself, okay? The tokens usually are backed by real world assets, okay? This can be tricky. I mean, they're not 100% backed. They should be, but I mean, that's why sometimes they are considered like kind of a high risk investment, right? And because they should be backed in real world assets, they are subject to the same regulatory requirements like traditional securities. Now, take a look on this. These are some statistics developed by the Kepler Finance Securities company that shows you the importance of security token offerings by industry. Okay, so take a look on the highest one, of course, is financial service and markets. This is what you are seeing on the right figure on your screen, okay? Then you have like business services, healthcare, okay? So this is becoming more and more popular, okay? And take a look on the right column, the amount of money raised and gold, okay? They're becoming bigger, okay? And on the left side, you can see the amount of money that is being raised in different years. Take a look on 2007, 2018, 2019, okay? Despite these are pre-pandemic numbers, I can confirm that this is still growing. Now you might be wondering why, okay? Well, there are many reasons. But before getting how we put this into a blockchain, let me explain briefly why this is becoming so popular. Because if you are issuing tokens, well, as I said, you need to be tied to securities regulation. So usually what you will do is look for a crypto-friendly country and then issuing the contracts from that crypto-friendly country, okay? Now, and I'm going to be back in a minute to this issue because Margaret asked me about the impact of this kind of the impact of smart contracts in practicing law and how you can use this if you are licensed in the US. Now, let me bring your attention to this. How can we link smart contracts into an STO? Well, it's not so complicated after listening to Professor Rada's presentation. The thing is pretty straightforward. Basically, what you will do is, let's assume that I need a certain amount of money, okay? And today is November 8th. So I say, hey, listen, I have this great project. Would you like to invest? All of you say, yes, of course. Well, I need, I don't know, $10 million. Okay, and all of you, or everybody present in this room, start investing. Of course, you're not going to invest $10 million, but I can get, like, I don't know, a couple of $1,000 from Margaret, a couple of $1,000 from Victor, a couple of $1,000 from Monica, and so on. Now, I need 10 million. And you are like putting your money in a wallet, okay, under my name. So what happened if I do not reach that amount? Okay, say I need that money by November 30th. What if I couldn't reach that goal? By any reason, I cannot reach that goal. I didn't make it. What happened? Well, in the real world, you should be worried that how are you going to get your money back? In the crypto world, not so complicated. You just program a smart contract. So how are you going to do that? Basically, I'm going to present my project in the blockchain Ethereum. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to program a smart contract that basically says, by November 30th, in my account, I should have $10 million. If that number is not reached, then each investor should get back his or her money in his wallets. So basically, the smart contract will take a look on my account on November 30th, I don't know, or midnight Eastern time. Do I have $10 million? The contract is executed and shift the $10 million to my wallet for executing the project. I haven't reached the $10 million. The smart contract is going to send your money back to each of you in the proportion you have invested. Okay, so you are 100% guarantee that your money is going to be back to you. So in that way, you can raise millions of dollars without knowing the person in which you are invested with. Okay, so it's creating a lot of confidence. But of course, you need knowledge on this. You need to understand how the blockchain works. You need to be sure that you are operating in a blockchain that tolerates a smart contract. Not every blockchain can deal with any kind of smart contract programming. In fact, there has been a lot of fraud committed on this. And one of the reasons is that average audience is not technical skill in order to realize which kind of blockchain they are investing and the protocols of that blockchain and the protocols of that smart contract and the protocols of the investment project. So, I mean, there is a lot of risk involved. That's why different countries are regulating this in different ways. Okay, I'm not going to pose an opinion on that regulation here, but one of the countries that has been regulating that in a very heavy way is the United States. So if you are licensed to practice in the United States, well, you will have a lot of work to do when you are advising a client that wants to issue an security token offerings under US jurisdiction, because you will be monitored by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, okay? And in there is heavily regulated because the SEC is in charge of protecting investors in the US, okay? So I think that with that, I also answer Margaret's question. Not much to add on my end, more than saying thank you. Here's my email in case you want to reach me if you have any further questions. Of course, we can discuss questions here in the webinar, but if we don't have enough time, you can email me anytime. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, Monica, I think I will switch the floor to you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Apologies, I was not here in the beginning of the webinar, but I'm here now. And really interested in all the topics here. I have some questions for Professor Pablo Yanello, if you will, before I
I'm here.
introduce myself more in detail. So one of the questions that always come to us and some students asked us in the past is, what do you think could be the impact of crypto and smart contracts on globalizing the legal profession? I mean, how might an attorney that is licensed both in the US and outside of the US be on the forefront of career opportunities in this emerging field?
Okay, that's a very good question. Well, this is a very evolving landscape. So perhaps the answer I can provide you today is going to change not so far in time. But what we are seeing today, or the trends that we are seeing in the job markets for attorneys, is that especially everything related with law and tech, mainly crypto, but not limited to crypto, is becoming more and more globalized. So either you are licensed in the US or not, it is perfectly possible for you to get a job in which you will be working with startups. And startups are usually companies that are eager to get money because they have highly need of investments. So usually they go through the crypto world. And you can have a startup in Peru, in Argentina, in Indonesia, or in Spain. And if you have a startup and they want to go crypto, well, it's highly likely that you have to deal with smart contracts and also regulations in different worlds, in different parts of the world, sorry, because regulations on that can be tricky. Some regulator says, okay, if you are issuing a token, but the jurisdiction is very crypto friendly and you are not providing enough guarantees for my investors in my country, that token cannot be traded in my country. So we are starting seeing this kind of things. So it's very important for the attorney to have a proper knowledge on the most significant jurisdictions where token are being traded.
Yes, completely agree. And for us in the legal profession, that will definitely impact the way that we ourselves provide our services, right? With such a globalized industry, and like you said, with remote companies across the globe in need of those legal professionals providing services, we might as well just come up with a smart contract to, provide those services as well. So it's very interesting. Another question that comes our way is, do you think that smart contracts may increase access to finance for small companies? Is that something that you anticipate that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this definitely is the case. More and more, I mean, we can do a very quick comparative exercise before smart contracts and before crypto. If you want to go public, you need to be a company in good standing with, good accounting records and do all the proper paperwork because before you can go to the stock market, okay? And anybody that is practicing law, despite the jurisdiction, knows that that costs a lot of money, okay? It's not cheap, go to the stock market. Now, today, anybody can issue a token. It's just as simple. So the smart contract is providing a very high level of security to issuing that token. However, the risk of being fraud or that fraud is being committed is always there. So, I mean, it's good, but it's still risky, okay? Because, you can be, scams are always there. So you need to be worried about where you are investing, right?
Yes, that's for sure. Especially in some jurisdictions, the ones that you mentioned that are crypto friendly, they also may have less regulations. So you could have issues due to that lack or less regulations in place. not here in the United States. In the United States, we have the SEC and the Fed on top of it. We have seen some cases, Binance, Coinbase, most recently with regards to crypto and the use of, those tokens. One more question, and it's about, this one is very practical, and I think a lot of people will benefit from that. What recommendations do you have for students and lawyers interested in learning more about this topic?
Well, the first recommendation is you can go to our webpage on the webinar series. I mean, there is good material there that you can check. But of course, if you like the law and tech area, I mean, trying to learn more about different jurisdictions, regulations, is a must. Not only related to law and tech, because someone might be like tempted to say, okay, I must learn cryptocurrency, and I must learn Solidity programming, and I must learn like very techy things. Of course, they are very useful, but you need to understand the difference of what a contract law is for civil law jurisdiction and common law jurisdictions, so that then if you have a contract law in a common law jurisdiction, can execute that contract, because Victor's presentation showed us a very good example of that. Even if you have a smart contract in consumer law, you must have a written version in natural language of that contract that can be eventually enforced in court. So if you just get lost in the law of a country that is not yours, well, that will present a problem. So proper training in a globalized regulation, it's a must, I guess.
Thank you, Professor Pablo. We will have an opportunity for an open Q&A at the end of this webinar. So everyone, I see there's some questions on the chat. We're going to address those questions in a couple of minutes. Just before that, I wanted to just share with you all a little bit of my experience, both with the University of Dayton online LLM program and how I have been involved in the tech and digital space as well in the United States. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know when you see it. Can you see it? All right. So my name is Monica. Some of you have met me already, some of you had not, but I'm a former student of the program, the University of Dayton Online LLM program. I am originally from Brazil, so I'm an attorney licensed in Brazil, and now I'm also licensed in the United States since 2020. I completed the program in 2020, and I sat for the DC bar, successfully passed, thank God, and now I am a practicing attorney here in the United States. I work for the BNP Paribas. It's a French bank, as a senior counsel for data privacy, cyber, digital, and IP. I know it's a long title, but it just means that I deal with those issues with crypto, cyber, data privacy on a daily basis, which is really, really exciting. And that just to show you all that a foreign attorney with a foreign degree can come and work in this country, or even work from your own country with a license from the US or another jurisdiction, and work on global issues, because that's the reality that we're facing nowadays. So the program that I completed here with you, Dayton, was really helpful because it helped me achieve that goal. I was here in the United States and I wanted to work here, preferably in this area of law, because that's what I had interest in. And then with the license in DC, I worked for Credit Suisse before, which is another bank in the same area, and now I'm with BNP Paribas. And I think that it's important to let attorneys around the globe know that for the past 10 years, I would say we have been having an open market for the legal profession. where you're not limited to the jurisdiction where you are originally from or where you have your license. So there's plenty of opportunity within, especially in tech and law, because of the boom of tech and all the increments on the use of AI, generative AI, crypto, smart contracts. So there's a need of professionals that specialize in this area. And if you have that background, the foreign background, where you have civil law understanding, or you have other jurisdictions, data privacy and cyber laws understanding and knowledge, that can be very useful for international companies across the globe, really. So I just want to tell you all that I'm here for you if you have any questions on how I did it, how was this path for me, all the bumps in the road, but all the great things that comes with it as well. Please reach out to me. I will be more than glad to meet with you individually, or if you have any questions today during this last minutes of this webinar, I'm glad to answer as well. And with that, I will give the floor back to Ms. Margaret.
Thank you very much, Monica and Professor Pablo, Professor Victor. I mean, these have been just amazing presentations and an amazing discussion. You know, we still have a lot of people in here, and I know a lot of questions have come in through the chat. So at this point, we would like to open up the question and answer to questions from everyone in the audience. I will go ahead and stop the recording at this point. And with that, I believe Edgar had the first question. So Professor Pablo, you can lead the Q&A.